Okay, let's keep rolling here. We're not going to go to the break. We're going to go directly to Nova Scotia on line number, what do I got here? Line number 10, and speak with the member for Carbonear, Harbour Grace, and of course the Minister of Natural Resources, Government House Leader, the Honourable Jerome Kennedy. Minister Kennedy, you're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon. How you doing?
Doing fine, sir. Thank you for your call. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. I'm here in Nova Scotia right now, but I thought I'd update you and your listeners on the what took place today with the Emera Nalcor agreements, and also give you an update as to where we are with the provision of information and numbers in relation to Muskrat Falls.
Let's do exactly that, then I have some questions. You go ahead. Okay,
first, in terms of, there's 2 points I really want to emphasize in terms of the signing of the Nalcor Emera agreements. The first being the importance of the interconnection or the maritime link. When I was in the UK recently, I met with the director of their climate change, a professor who really talked about the importance of interconnection. And he used the example, Paddy, of Europe being interconnected, the UK being connected to Norway, or wanting to be connected with Norway with hydro, nuclear with France. And so that interconnection is a crucial aspect, especially as it stands right now. We're an isolated system. Mm-hmm. The second point that's tied into the first, of course, is that this is a necessary from our perspective in terms of our inability over the past 40-odd years to deal with Quebec. We have the significant hydroelectric resources, which we've never been able to get across Quebec. So what Muskrat Falls is doing with the Labrador Island Link and the Maritime Link is allowing us to transmit our energy to the Atlantic provinces, and in that respect, and elsewhere in the United States, and in that respect is a very, very significant event. No longer held hostage by Quebec, and being finally able to escape those the geographical stranglehold.
So that's one of the things that people will question is Quebec would have presented a much more cost-effective route. Now, we all know they've been difficult to deal with in the past, but people would really want to know, what's the level of conversation with these folks? Did it ever get to a negotiated stage, or was this just putting out feelers and seeing where we stood for potential for business deals?
Well, Paddy, this first started with the Lower Churchill back around in the 70s. The Lower Churchill Development Corporation was formed in 1976. We had Premier Peckford who tried to reach a deal. We then had the Liberal government who tried to reach a deal on the Lower Churchill. So all of our premiers and governments have tried to reach a deal in Quebec, but the reality is that they hold all of the cards, and essentially the Lower Churchill development can go nowhere without access to Quebec to our potential major market, which would be Ontario. So it's not simply a matter of saying that we're doing this to spite Quebec. What we're doing this is to further our vision of making Newfoundland and Labrador an energy warehouse, and we have to be able to show Quebec that we're not going to be held hostage by them anymore.
There's a lot of hurdles that are yet to be cleared. This was one heading towards sanction, and there's some other things that are left to be done. But the number one concern for, I would suggest, the vast majority of people in the province is the cost. No mention of any of the update on cost today, any of the so-called Decision Gate 3 numbers. The budget of $6.2 billion has been updated in the wild. Do you have any numbers you can share today?
No, we're still working towards the final numbers, Paddy. I mean, the Premier indicated recently that the costs are going to go up. The Premier and I indicated in the House of Assembly that we would be providing natural gas reports, both on the LNG proposition and also the building of a pipeline, that we would be providing a study on wind, and that we would provide the Decision Gate 3 or the final numbers reviewed by Manitoba Hydro International. Those numbers are still being worked on, and we're diligently moving towards a debate in the House of Assembly in the early fall or fall session.
When we talk about the numbers, and you're right, the Premier said the numbers will go up. There's no question about that. And when we talked about Muskrat Falls as a comparative to other options, it was proven to be, or said to be, the least cost option by some $2.2 billion. Does that mean that if the number comes in at $8.5 billion, that Muskrat Falls gets shelved?
What we have to look at are all of the numbers, Paddy. And of course, I keep coming back to that first question that's really a crucial question from our perspective: is do we need the power? And the latest load forecast, which will also be released, indicates that our need for power is going up. And of course, we have very significant mining developments in Labrador, up to $10 to $15 billion worth of potential mine developments that all need power. So once we need the power, then the question becomes, when do we need the power, and how do we obtain it? If the cost, and the cost of Muskrat Falls, obviously, we expect will go up, well, then the cost of the other alternatives will go up also. So it's really, you have to compare apples to apples, and it's not simply saying, well, Muskrat Falls costs will go up. We have to also look at the taking Holyrood out of the picture. We have an oil-fired facility that in 30 years from now will be more than 70 years old and is spewing harmful toxins into the air. So we have to look at all of this, all of these factors. We have to look at the various reports that we will provide. We have to look at the final numbers and then make a determination on sanction when we have all that information.
But people's comfort and money is going to come down to very simple stuff. If the alternative costs go up, as does Muskrat Falls, if the difference in value for developing a hydro asset was $2.2 billion on comparisons, if that changes to be in a break-even or a loser compared to the other options, does that mean that when the numbers are released, if they're any more than the $2.2 billion that was always pointed at as the reason for Muskrat Falls, if the number is anywhere in the even or in this minus category for the comparative, does that mean Muskrat Falls goes away? Because there's lots of ways to generate power. Whether or not they're the right idea or the wrong idea is up for debate. But is it as simple as that, though, sir?
Yeah, well, obviously we'll have to look at all that, Paddy, but the information I have to date indicates that there will still be a significant cost advantage to Muskrat Falls. And if you look at the issue of refurbishing Holyrood, for example, although it could supply power to the island, it will do nothing for the development of the mines in Labrador. So we have to look at everything as a whole. We'll look at all of the numbers, and we will then make the decision based on all of the information. So the information is still coming in, and as we indicated, we will provide it to the people of the province and to the opposition certainly plenty of time prior to the debate.
The Liberal Party today has a news release saying it's a bad deal for the province based on the fact that Nova Scotia ratepayers will pay less than what we are. So we're subsidizing, this is the words I'm taking from their news release, we're subsidizing the consumption of power for Nova Scotians, for people in the mining business, private sector companies due to make billions of dollars on the resources that they're mining in our province. Where outside of this where can you shoot that down so that people can understand? Because it's a tough pill to swallow if some Nova Scotia pays less than we do for something that we own and an investment we're making on the back of the ratepayer.
Paddy, Nova Scotia will receive 20% of power for 20% of the cost. The difference is that in this province we will own a revenue-generating facility which will generate revenue for the next 100 years. I'm a bit surprised at the Liberal approach, although I understand that the opposition has to take that approach. But I can't imagine that Yvonne Jones is opposing the provision of power to these mining companies in Labrador. And also, I mean, Dean MacDonald, the would-be leader of the Liberals, supports the project, as does Bob Ray, the current leader of the federal Liberals. So I know they have to do their job, but I think they should just, save it for the House of Assembly when all the information's in, and then we'll certainly be there to debate this issue in full.
And outside of the subsidized, or what people call a subsidized rate for Nova Scotia, this is a question that continues to pop up. It just came up on my screen again. We've been through this, but I'd like to ask it for the benefit of the listeners. Section 92A in the updated Constitution, the recall power we have, or the recall issues that we do indeed enjoy with the Upper Churchill, what's the standing of using that as a way to generate power for the mines in Labrador, say, for instance, where it seems to be the major draw or need for power is? Can that be a progressive way forward without developing Muskrat Falls?
Yeah, the recall power is something, Paddy, under 92A that I had looked at both as a Minister of Justice and then as I continued in my various portfolios. There's no question that we could recall power under 92A, but we had an opinion from the leading contract expert in Quebec that the recall of power for commercial purposes would not amount to a force majeure. It's the only way to set aside the contract. So in essence, what we would do is we would be subject to billions of dollars in damages for breach of the power contract, which is governed by the law of Quebec. We'll also be providing information on that. So recall simply won't work. As it currently stands, we have two blocks of power that are recall power. There's the 225 megawatt Twinko block, which is provided to IOC and Wabush Mines, and then there's a 300 megawatt recall block which is used to provide power in Labrador, which at peak is about 220 megawatts of energy. So there's approximately 80 megawatts left. We're looking at all angles here, Paddy, and we're certainly going to provide the information to the public for a full debate, and we welcome that debate in the House of Assembly.
And we're just asking these questions for the benefit of the people listening who are concerned about it. Just a couple of very quick ones, sir, and I'll let you go to your news conference. When you release the evaluation, the analysis of the alternatives, whether it be LNG or producing offshore, will this be a full evaluation with costs associated all revealed and released to the public?
Yeah, Yeah, we've retained a company out of Quebec. Out of Calgary. It was difficult to find a company that wasn't involved somehow or other in our offshore. And this, Zip Energy out of Calgary has provided or will prepare reports both on the importation of natural gas, for example, from the United States based on the low cost of shale gas, and also the building of a pipeline from the Grand Bank. So they will provide reports, those reports will be provided to the public in full as written. And we're also providing or having a report prepared on wind by MHA, the full cost. I mean, it's probably no surprise to you based on comments I've heard in the past that the cost of developing the natural gas will be astronomical.
And when can we expect the debate on Muskrat Falls to take place in the House?
Well, we've got to get all our numbers. We're still waiting to finalize the loan guarantee, which is obviously a significant part of this issue, because it will certainly bring the cost down, could save a lot of money. So once we have the loan guarantee finalized, which we've been assured will take place, once we have our final numbers and all the reports prepared, we will release them in time for the debate, and I expect that the best I can tell you is that the debate will take place as it now stands in the fall.
I appreciate your time, Minister Kennedy. When we get closer to those numbers being released to the public up for debate and consideration, we look forward to speaking with you again.
Patty, you'll be the first to know.
I appreciate it.
See you, bye.
All the best. Minister Jerome Kennedy, Minister of Natural Resources, Government House Leader. Any comment you'd like to offer based on what you heard? You know, these are... all the things that we saw today is just the extrapolation of a term sheet to a legal document. Fine. The real crux of the concern for the vast majority of folks is how much. What happens when we sell power, if and when we send power down south? Does that reduce my burden as a ratepayer? How much is the burden to begin with? Where's the threshold from walking away from Muskrat Falls? If it was $2.2 billion, that made an advantage. If that evaporates, does that mean Muskrat Falls goes away? All of these concrete issues that we need to talk about with the money, if the numbers aren't available, we once again remain in the position of conjecture and speculation, worry, concern, controversy, and those are the things that have made Muskrat Falls the contentious issue it is, as opposed to what it could have been at the beginning is a business deal. This is a business deal. This should not have been politics. It should not have been the fiasco it is. But because we haven't been able to find out all the things we want to know, it is exactly that, a fiasco and a controversy.